Remember last time we were like randomly talking about something?
Yeah, exactly. Good afternoon, good morning, Vietnam. How are we all doing? Welcome to the last live feed from Ruby Rose in 2020.
Yes, I know. What a year it's been. And it's not over yet, but soon it will be.
We have 24 days, so that's meteor strikes, tsunamis, and whatever else the world is going to throw at us. But let's all stay safe. Welcome to the second live feed of our day. We have come fresh from the exclusive and upmarket dinner party that is our Patreon live feed to this, which is more akin to like a 1990s rave. So I will be blowing a whistle. You're all wearing kind of like coloured makeup, like heavily day glow makeup, and we're all dancing underneath laser lights. So welcome all of you. The way this works is that you ask the questions, we give you the answers. The questions we don't want to answer, we either ignore or just give you some glib or sarcastic comment.
However, first of all, can you all just let us know whether the audio and the video are kind of okay? Don't expect perfection. We are in Greece working off what we hope is a 4G signal, but may like not quite be there yet. So yeah, like manage your expectations, but as long as you can hear us and see us okay, then that's kind of good enough for the moment.
There you go. So everyone seems to be hearing. There's thumbs up coming in. There are little hearts. Someone sent us what looks like an emoji wearing a party hat. That's Holly again. So anyway, listen, welcome all of you. Well, listen, it's been a fantastic year, and I do hope that you're all safe, despite the fact that when I say fantastic, I really do mean bloody awful. We are obviously still ensconced in Greece. So we're leaving Greece next week. This is our last week here. We've spent 2 months here editing and perfecting what we do with our, honing, I think it's probably honing our techniques. And we've got a pretty interesting 2021, hopefully. Now, as you all know, at the back end of 2021, we are picking up Ruby Rose 2, and we have a lot going on between now and then. So, Teresa, what are we doing in 2021? Let's run it down like the top 10 of hits from 1986.
Right. Well, in January, we are very, very, very much hoping we get on our flight to Sydney. We have that all booked in, visas approved, travel exemptions approved, etc. and so on. Everything is all in place. We just have to hope that we don't get bumped off our flights like almost every other Australian is getting bumped at the moment. So everyone crosses their fingers that we get on our flight. Assuming we do, then we are spending, I would say, the first half of 2021 in Australia. And we have some really exciting plans for that time. I mean, obviously, the reason why we're going to Australia in the first place is because I'm from Australia and my family are in Australia. And obviously, this year has been quite difficult. And we want to go back and spend some time with my family. But also, one thing that we've never done and we've always wanted to do is sail in Australian waters. I mean, I guess for myself in particular, that's like a real bucket list thing for me. And because it's now looking like when we take delivery of Ruby Rose 2, we're going to be going either from Vietnam and west or across the Indian Ocean, or we'll be like taking delivery in Europe or shipping to Europe. And we're not going to get to sail to Australia for some time. So we thought, you know what, while we have a bit of a gap between boats, why not go to Australia and do some sailing? So that's what we're going to do, which we're super excited about. We are going to sail along the New South Wales coast, so out of Sydney. There's a really beautiful cruising ground around there, which we're going to explore. So we're super excited about that. And then we are going to also do a separate charter in the Whitsundays, which of course is like the best known cruising ground in Australia. It's beautiful, like tropical beaches, like white sand beaches, turquoise water, islands, coral, it's right near the Great Barrier Reef, beautiful snorkeling and spear diving or spearfishing and all that kind of stuff. So we are excited. We're really pumped. And we're going to be sailing, those 2 trips are going to be on catamarans. So we're going to be sailing catamarans. And we've got a few other things on our on our radar that we're going to do, but I think we won't announce them yet because we're still working out the details.
So a couple of reasons. Firstly, the reason we're chartering cats is we're going onto a cat. As you know, Ruby Rose 2 is the new Seawind. We need to learn how to sail a cat. And while I have no expectation to learn how to sail a cat inside of 4 weeks, we will obviously be able to increase our knowledge on about catamaran sailing there. So that's one reason we're doing it. Second reason is to do with the way that we run our channel. Now, honestly, I've said that we get a lot of people asking us about the actual YouTube filming aspect of it, and how do you get this sort of thing done, and how do you learn to do this sort of work. It is like learning to play a piano. You can't pick it up, you've got to learn it. So we have, while we have been sat in Greece, we've been spending a lot of time investing in techniques, education, film techniques, editing techniques, the technology and the software that goes into different packages, new lenses for the cameras, new drones. And so in getting to Australia, we can use this time, like we did in Thailand last year, to kind of learn a new set of techniques. So that's kind of where we're going with this. So we're going to be doing a lot of filming on catamarans. We're going to do actually a bit of filming around Australia. It's such a beautiful country, and everyone responded so well to the video we put out last Christmas about Australia. But I really want to do some more cinematic stuff around Australia, the kind of like the sweeping expanses of like red land and all that mad stuff. So yeah, that I think will really produce. Yeah, that will add
we did like a Google Maps. Like we're like, okay, we want to drive from here to here. Like let's like see how far it's going to take. So we put Google Maps onto like the satellite image, and it was like, oh, there really is nothing in the middle of Australia. Like it is all. If you look at the satellite image of the middle of Australia, which takes up the majority of Australia, it is red. Anyway,
I actually use Google Street View in the middle of one of the highways, like 1,000 anyway. It's like, all right,
that's what you see for hours and hours, if not days. So anyway, well, let's say some hello. So we've got some people from all over the world watching right now, which I think is so cool. So we've got we have people from the UK. We've got Christos from Thessaloniki. Can you say that for me?
Thessaloniki, babe.
Thank you.
It's Greece. We live in Greece.
I know. I couldn't get my tongue around it. We have Robert living in Canada at the moment. We have Josh from North Carolina. We have Robert who's in Saudi Arabia. Holly?
Andreas from Finland. We've got Steve from California. Brad, again, hello. Still at the airport, sir. Sally from Georgia. McRae just kind of says hello. Advocatus Diaboli from Thailand.
Brilliant.
You, sir, sound like a very interesting person. And Elle, where have you been? We haven't seen you for ages.
We've got someone from Turkey, someone from
Elle is
Montreal.
back.
Oh, we've got someone from Adelaide. Jeez, what time is it in Adelaide?
It's too bloody late.
Yeah, go to sleep.
So a couple of things about Adelaide. Thank you, Timothy. That's very kind of you.
Thank you, Timothy.
We are going to tour Australia. So we're going to be in Australia for 5 or 6 months. And we're going to film in Australia. That means that we're going to do a lot of kind of like, we really want to showcase Australia as the beautiful place that it is. So we're going out there with new camera gear, new lenses, new stuff, and hope to really be able to bring you some amazing footage and stories. The other thing is, something we've been promising that we would do since we started the YouTube channel is actually go and do some meetups in Australia. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to make it to Perth because it's a long way west. But we are going to do some meetups we'll do one in Adelaide. We're going to do one in Melbourne. We'll do one in Sydney, and we may try and do one in Brisbane as well. So obviously, this will all be socially distanced. Hugely responsible. At no point will there be strippers. At no point will I be chugging like rum or like necking tequila or doing belly shots. It's just going to be a lovely sedate couple of evenings. I promise you. So yeah, that's where we're going with that.
So just a few more hellos because I think it's amazing how spread out everyone is. So we have people from Tel Aviv, we've got people from the Netherlands, South Carolina, Lake City, Cheshire, Santa Barbara, Quebec, Virginia, Ohio, Washington,
South Carolina, the Holland.
Yeah, amazing. The UK, that's so cool. Dubai. So yeah, hi everyone from all around the world. There's even a few people in Australia watching right now, which, it's like the middle of the night there.
And Elle says she's not coming to this meetup unless we do belly shots. So there you go, we have one. So listen, all 320 of you that are watching, there's a like button down there. If you click that little like button, it essentially means that, I don't know what it means, but it means that you like what we're doing. So if you could click it, it does help our channel. What's that? Nick says Teresa is way too beautiful for Nick. I agree with you, Nick. I honestly, as I drag this face around the world, I literally wake up in the morning thinking, what in Jesus' name is she doing with me?
True.
It's true.
True.
Then I grovel backwards out of the bedroom.
Bowing as you go.
Bowing and scraping, wander off to then come forward with a velvet cushion carrying either some sort of miniature breakfast pastry and a coffee, and then I have to. It's like those soldiers that are in Vietnam. You have to wake them pretty damn slowly, because if you don't, like, honestly, God forbid, it's like Smaug waking up from its pile of gold. Like, one eye slowly opens, and then this kind of like. It's
fraught.
It's all behind the scenes at Ruby Rose. It's probably slightly different to the polished veneer that you see outside.
Real polished. Tim, thank you so much. So that's just very, very lovely.
William says that you look like James Bond. There you go. Do you see the beast? Do you have him in your sight?
So I can't actually see the comments very well because
I'm just keeping them from you.
No, but also you have glasses, and I feel like
Are your eyes going now as well?
I don't think so. I think it's a black background with a white text. Anyway, I'm struggling to read, and I don't want to be like
all right. Don't be
hunched
squinty.
over,
Don't be
squinting.
Don't be squinty.
So,
I will do the squinting, seeing as I'm clearly the hunchback in this relationship.
I was going to say the better reader.
With my spectacles. I'll take these off and it's just a blur. So listen, if you do have questions about anything, any aspect...
Look, Nick's too handsome for everyone.
I think someone else needs glasses. If you do have questions, just let us know. We'll answer them. There's a lot of stuff going on with Ruby Rose. There's a lot of stuff going on with, what we're doing for the channel. Sam, that is very, very kind of you, sir.
Sam?
Yes, AOT is Sam, isn't it? Sam and Sydney. I think I've got that right. Anyway, thank you.
If not, thanks so much.
No, Sam is both. Okay. What are we going to talk about? So yeah, firstly, Australia for the first half of 2021. Assuming we can get in, we've got the permissions and the tickets already. So that's that. Next, we are going to be at Annapolis. We're definitely going to be at Annapolis. We said that about 2020, but something got in the way.
Extenuating circumstances.
There were a few things, but we're going to be at Annapolis for 2021. So yes, we're going to be doing meetups. Yes, it's going to be, we've got to cram in 2 years worth of partying into 1 year. I haven't quite got my head around what that actually means, but it probably means someone's going to be on fire by the end of it. So
in the best possible way.
In the best, yeah. Obviously, we're not. It's not going to be something out of like Game of Thrones. There's something. So there's definitely going to be. So yeah, I mean, being on fire in the kind of like in the party sense, it's going to be hot. So yeah, so we're
in the like
in the Game of Thrones sense. Like, is that a burning man over there? No, it's just Nick being crucified by Neil Catamarans. So we are going to be at Annapolis. We're going to fly over. We're going to do everything. But another thing is, we have been invited by now a couple of manufacturers to review their new boats, and we toyed up with the do we go and review more catamarans now that we've found our catamaran? Is it really in the keeping of what we're doing? But I honestly think the answer is yes, and obviously that's self-serving because I've decided that. But there's a lot of new stuff coming onto the market, and for instance, there's a new Exquisite coming out, and they've invited us to come and review it, and why would we not review it? So there's that. We've got so many people asking for the barley. Everyone wants to see a review of the barley. Now,
do you guys want to see? Can I get like a yes or no? Just type yes or no, and we'll have a quick snapshot. Do you want to see a review of the barley? Because when we first kind of decided on the whole catamaran review series. No, yes, okay, keep them coming. We've got one of each so far. We didn't include the barley because it's so clearly set up for the charter market, and we really were focused on liveaboard catamarans. But we've had so many emails, messages, and whatever saying, please review the barley. And
well, there you go. Okay. That split the freaking pack, isn't it? So the point is that, honestly,
I feel like there's no more no's there.
So,
no, it was a bathtub. Yeah,
it is a bathtub, and I don't like it.
Exactly.
But I think when I don't like something, I really should go back in. But the thing about the barley is, it's not meant to be a blue water cruiser. Now, honestly, I do think that we have to approach this differently. We did 19 reviews based on we're choosing a catamaran. We chose a catamaran. But now, how do we go back into that? I think definitely use the same criteria, because then we can just add it to the repository of other reviews that we've done. But I think the fact that we've been invited to review another one, and I really do want to see the new Exquisite, because I love the X5. As Fred points out, I'm not sure Neil will let us on board with such.
Look, I think that the best thing, what I want to do, and this is actually logistically really difficult, which is why we never did them for the original series, is actually go and test sail some boats.
Yes.
And that's hard because the best most efficient use of our time is at a boat show because we can review loads of boats in a very short space of time. But actually, test sailing boats is logistically really difficult because most manufacturers don't have like a show boat. It's not like when you like are trying to buy a car and you go to the car salespeople and they have like a demo that is specifically for just showing people the actual model. The manufacturers, like, you have to kind of really scrounge around for a boat that's available to do a test sail on. So we're going to try and line some stuff up because obviously Annapolis is an opportunity because lots of boats are there, and then after Annapolis they all have to kind of disperse and go other places. So we might be able to work something out there.
I'd like to think, I mean, last year, because of everything that we were doing, we only spent about 4 or 5 days in Annapolis. I think we'd probably stay longer and spend time actually lining up the test sails either before or afterwards. Last year was difficult because we were literally constrained by an event before and an event afterwards. So so that Annapolis 2021, so we will be there.
Yep.
And again, strippers, belly shots, boat reviews in reverse order. So that's that. We're pretty. So that's.
Can I just say, like, Nick likes to talk the talk. When was the last time you went to a strip club?
When did I last go to
Strippers. When was the last time you went to a strip club? Come on.
I can't tell you.
Yes, you can.
I can't remember.
Exactly. And what happened the last time you went there?
They scared me.
Didn't quite know what to do with himself.
What do I do with that? Put it in your mouth. I don't want to.
And probably left and went down the pub or something with a nice kind of comfortable area.
I got a nice pint of bitter and some pork scratchings, and we called that. Anyway.
Now, don't believe when he starts banging on about strippers and belly shots. He wouldn't know what to do with a stripper if they like wrote it out in bullet points and handed it over to him.
And the next episode of Ruby Rose. Anyway, look,
just to make that clear.
Moving this, so that's Annapolis 2021. So Australia, we will be doing meetups in Australia. We'll be doing meetups in Annapolis because we really do want to kind of catch up with you all again. So there's 400 of you watching, and of which I want only 200 of you have liked it. So that means that 50% of the people watching haven't liked it. So I'm just going to give you a little nudgette to click the like button. So that's Annapolis, and then after that we will move to Vietnam for the new boat. So and then huge amount of filming about the final stages of that build, and we're going to get on with that, so that's pretty cool. Now, someone asked a few minutes ago, and his name, I will, just because it was an important question, and I wanted to bring this up this morning, about electric engines. Who was it that asked this? No, it's gone. Someone said, put it down, if you're still watching, ask it again about electric engines in Ruby Rose 2, and we've had this question a lot. It's
like the most asked question regarding Ruby Rose 2.
And we have always said, no, we're not putting electric engines in. We are electric motors, just for the pedants. For the pedants. For the pedants, it's electric
motors. We get told
motors.
off about that too.
So electric motors. The answer is no. And something that's in the news, someone we've actually met, Jimmy Cornell. Jimmy Cornell is a super chap. He's 83, I think. He's in his 80s. He had an electric Ultramar 4X built, completely electric, with all the regen capacity to take him on a circumnavigation, and he's had to turn around and come back to France from the Canaries. Like he was a long way down there. He's like because the boat he could not keep the electronics working on that boat with the regen capacity of electric motors. So even with his solar, even with everything he's got, the technology still isn't there. So for a blue water cruiser that wants to go offshore, electric motors are not the way forward. Now, some people are going to stick their hand up in class and say, yeah, but miss, what about either using electric motors and a genset? Now, the reason that we didn't go down this road is that gensets are super unreliable. They're not as reliable as diesel engines. If you are taking, even if they all cost the same amount, like dollar for dollar, it was the same amount of money, and you took 2 electric motors and 1 genset, you are still putting 100% of your faith in that genset in keeping the boat electrics running. And in the 5 years that we've lived on a boat, most people that we meet that are repairing parts of their boat are repairing the genset. Oh, it's not working, it won't fire up, it won't start, it's chewed up another impeller. I'd rather have two bloody great diesel engines that are super efficient, powering everything, and that's what we've gone for. That's the first thing. Some other people have said, well, why don't you put one electric engine in and one electric motor, one diesel engine? It is pretty difficult to get the torque balanced. And again, you could do that, but again, electric motors are super expensive compared to diesel engines. So from our point of view, what we've done is we are building a boat that is super light, that has two diesel engines in it. And those engines, we've gone for the 57. So those of you who haven't watched the Seawind, the video, we've got 57 horsepower engines going in, which are the same weight almost as the 37s, which means that we can run the boat on one engine. So it will sip away at diesel. We've got a whole new spare engine in the other hull in case one goes wrong or we've got a problem with fuel. And it gives us, with those 200 amp alternators on each, huge amount of regen from actual mechanical charging unit, which, alternators have been proven to be used, essentially an alternator is an electric motor that runs backwards. So we've got proven charging facilities, and there is no real alternative to running non-electric boats in blue water,
as a blue water
as a
cruiser.
blue, yeah. So that's why we're going with this. And so we feel pretty vindicated. So the question about why we're not using electric motors is because they don't work, and that's just been proven that they don't work without having some diesel on board.
Yeah, so let us know your thoughts. Rant over. So let us know your thoughts on that, everyone. Because as we've said, we've had, I think that was the most asked question, why aren't you getting electric motors instead of diesel? And I have to say that we would love to have an all-electric sailboat. It's not that we're not really hoping that can happen at some point. It's more that just at the moment we're being very realistic based on 5 years of living on a boat full time about what we want and what we need from Ruby Rose 2 in terms of in terms of everything, but definitely in terms of our power requirements. And we have spoken extensively to Seawind, and they have said all along, look, you cannot have the electric motors without a genset. And they're not only, electric motors are ridiculously expensive. They're super, super expensive. Yeah. So not only can we not afford that, but also it's kind of beside the point. I would have thought most of the point of having electric motors would be to get rid of fossil fuels on your boat completely and have a completely carbon neutral boat, which would be amazing. But then if you need a genset anyway, then you've kind of that is all a bit of a pointless exercise.
Well, look, there's a lot of points coming about Uma, and we've actually got an episode where we interview Uma about this. Uma's range is about 40 nautical miles. So Dan and Kika, they've got about 40. Is it 40 or 13? Someone will point out.
Someone tell us.
Then their regen capacity is very, very low. Now we have talked about this. There's a certain type of sailing you can do, and I'm not disagreeing with Dan and Kika on this. It's just a different way of looking at it. Yeah. We have crossed oceans. We know full well that even in last season, and you wait the episode that comes out next week, I think it's the one, we actually managed to get the boat going backwards. You cannot sail against tidal flows and punch tide around France with an electric motor. It just doesn't work. So, there are lots of times last season, and it's not to do with it. Everyone's like, well, you need to plan your passages better. You don't. Honestly, the way you get a coastal sailing zone where you have to do a certain number of miles because that's between two ports, and there is no realistic place to get in anywhere in between. If that sail or that passage is going to take you 7 or 8 hours just because of the distance, you have to punch tide, and you are not going to be able to do this unless you run the engine.
I think the other thing is that, someone said, SV Lola Louise said, Uma's kind of proven you wrong. The thing is that Uma, as in the boat Uma, is a very different type of boat, and it's set up in a very different way to Ruby Rose 2. And we have always wanted to make some changes to the way that we kind of lived on board Ruby Rose. And some of those changes involved having a high output water maker, having a washing machine, even having air conditioning. So, we like we're not going to be able to manage all of that if we can't even like power the batteries enough to run the engines. Also, I'm assuming that Uma has self-steer. We're not going to be able to have self-steer because we're on a catamaran. So even when we're sailing, and as in like sails are up sailing, we're still going to, like middle of the ocean kind of stuff, we're still going to be using a lot of power because we're going to have our AIS on, of course. We're going to have, you know, our chart plotter on. We're going to have, which we had to turn off, by the way, when we were doing our Atlantic crossings because it was using up too much power. We're going to have our autopilot on. So, as well as obviously like our fridge and whatnot. So, you know, and making water. So Uma is a 38 foot monohull. You know, we're talking about a 45 foot catamaran with a lot, it's going to be much, much, much more power hungry.
Yep.
So we can't power all of that with our solar and have electric motors as well. It's a different way of living. You can't really compare the two. I know that the comparison is like tempting to make, but
well,
it's
actually,
really
someone
hard
called
to
Joe
compare.
Vlogs has made a pretty interesting comment, which has actually been addressed by Dan pretty amazingly. And the thing I love about Dan is that, and Kika, they're architects that have gone into sailing, so they understand material science pretty, superbly well. Joe says, if you haven't read it, he says, "Stop apologising for not virtue signalling. You're sailing a plastic boat." There is, to me, a huge kind of misconception about fiberglass boats, and Dan has encapsulated this pretty well in the interview we did with him, but we know them, so we talk about this. There's nothing wrong with plastic boats because they're not being recycled. They're not going into landfill. They're essentially, plastic is an amazing material. Okay, you can argue that the carbon, the carbon emissions in the construction of it are pretty, are huge, but it is not as wasteful as taking drinking straws and put them into landfill or plastic bags or just wasting plastic. So, yeah, look, it's all nuanced.
And I wouldn't say that I'm virtue signaling either. Like, I think that you have to be real. I think that you have to be realistic. We wanted this new boat to essentially be the perfect liveaboard for us. And I think that the boat will definitely serve that purpose. Yeah. But it's, there's a balance in everything.
So any questions, just type them down and we'll answer them. Someone said our merchandise store is down. We'll check that. If there's an issue, we'll get onto Aurelia, who's our lady who deals with all our merchandise, and we'll have a look at that. So we'll have a look at all those things. What else have we got? What other news do we have?
I don't know. What other news do we have? So we're in Greece at the moment. We're fostering a little naughty kitten who has disappeared for a minute, which is probably a good thing because we're abandoning him on Thursday because we're flying back to the UK. We have to do some quarantine when we get back to the UK, and then we're going to be let free, which is going to be really lovely.
Oh, someone's asked if we sold Ruby Rose yet. Yeah, Ruby Rose sold in September to a really lovely couple who don't want any media attention. And they were pretty clear about that. Like, please don't put our names on the internet or anything.
Yeah.
But they're a lovely couple. They plan, I think, next year to take her. She's on the south coast of the UK, and they propose to take her sailing again. So she's going to go off again with new owners to do like the same sort of thing. So that to us is amazing, and they're pretty considerate owners. And I know that you don't often get to choose who owns your boat or who buys your boat, but we were pretty pleased with that.
So Dana, I saw this question come up before, but I think Nick was probably talking and we missed it. You said boat builders I've spoken to are having trouble keeping up with demand. Who do you see buying boats today? What is your builder saying? So there is a ridiculous demand at the moment for boats, both new and used. It's just crazy, and you wouldn't think that would be the case because of obviously the whole economic situation. So I don't know why that is, but I do know that there has been a massive increase in demand for, as I said, in the used market and new. I don't know who are buying these boats, because I think that there's such a wide spectrum of people who have decided after possibly years of thinking about making a lifestyle change that now is the time. I think that there's also an element of people deciding to holiday kind of closer to home with international borders closed. So they're buying a boat so they can kind of have weekends on their boat or sail around kind of their locality, their vicinity, and get like a little holiday that way, to kind of have some kind of semblance of freedom, of normality. I think people want to get into like a new hobby. They might want to take on a new project at the moment. So I think there's lots of reasons. I think I don't actually know the answer. It's also possible that there aren't as many boats being put onto the market at the moment. People might not be selling their boats at the moment because there's so much uncertainty about what's going on.
It's a very rare seller's market. I haven't seen a seller. I mean, I've been in sailing since 2006, and I think I've only seen a seller's market. I don't think I've ever seen one like this. So it is, for all the reasons Teresa has alluded to, it is. There's a lot of demand and not as much supply.
And it's boats all across the spectrum. So it's people buying budget boats. It's people buying like boats over $1 million. It's everything.
Yeah.
Everything. There's so and Seawind, obviously the boat builder that we're dealing with, they're really like they essentially cannot keep up with demand right now. Their books are completely full. They just cannot. They don't have any build slots available for like years and years and years. So yeah, it's quite astonishing when you think about it. You wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, who would have thought?
Yeah.
Jason actually says, I read the question right. If you haven't promoted it, you guys have done some amazing podcast interviews recently. Thank you so much. We have done a lot of interviews. So we've been interviewed by a lot of different people for different magazines, different podcasts. What was the one we did last time? I want to give her a shout out because it's interesting. What's it? International Yacht Radio?
Yes.
So if you look at International Yacht Radio, she's got a YouTube website. She's called Ria. She's also got a podcast. We did a really amazing interview with her. And the reason it was so amazing is because it was different. Like she asked us really different questions. And one of them, we got into this huge thing about mental health in sailing and relationships in sailing and how stresses on relationships just increase massively. It becomes a pressure cooker when you're living on a boat together. And she was pretty candid. I think she's the sort of person that, literally you could go out and, create hell, raise hell with, because she's pretty upfront about stuff. So we have been doing a lot of interviews, and that one, we did that interview only a couple of weeks ago, but she put it out pretty.
I can't do it now, but once, if you're watching this, after, not live, so if you're watching this after the fact, then you'll be able to look in the description, and I'll add the link to her podcast and her YouTube channel in the description. I can't do it as we're live, but I'll do it as soon as we finish, and then people watching this later or tomorrow during the week will be able to see that in the description.
Elle says that people are flipping boats as well now, like they do houses. Look, it's nuts. But hopefully 2021, I mean, touch wood, will settle down a little bit. We're not going to end up with all sorts of insanity like 2020's thrown at us. So someone asked about vaccines. Well, there's a can of whoop ass to open up. Are we going to get vaccinated? Yes, we are.
As in us personally?
Yeah.
Well, we don't know because we can't.
I'm sorry. I didn't get that memo.
Well, we might not have the opportunity.
Option,
I know in the UK there's no plans at the moment to vaccinate under 50s. Nick is still an under 50.
Yes. Yes.
And in Australia, I have no idea what their program will look like. So we'll see. But I think that unfortunately, that for the purposes of international travel, then vaccines will be. You'll essentially have to have the vaccine if you want to travel internationally. So we'll have to get it at some point. Holly, the podcast info. Sorry, I can't do it now because we're
No, she just said thanks.
Oh, she said thanks.
Yeah, thanks podcast.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
Sorry.
It's an abbreviation.
Sorry, I didn't see that bit. I told you that I couldn't really read the comments.
Yeah. So that's our plans for 2021, and then obviously this time next year we'll be in Ruby Rose 2 or on Ruby Rose 2 or pretty close to. And then that whole thing, I mean, I know it seems as if we sit around drinking ouzo and eating gyros all day long. This time in Greece is actually, it's been pretty busy. Like literally we work most days, but there's so many bits about Ruby Rose 2 that, we need to sort out. We were fielding questions, we were having a big discussion on the Patreon part, live stream an hour ago about communications. Like what are we going to do for communications? How are we going to communicate, send emails, update Facebook and stuff. And honestly, like really, we've done this for 5 years now. And one thing that I do believe is just a massive fugazi, just a huge waste of time and money on boats are Wi-Fi extenders. Honestly, we had a really good one. And so it's not to do with the fact that Wi-Fi extenders aren't good. They all do what they're meant to do. They pick up Wi-Fi from miles away in some cases. I think ours sometimes would do like a kilometre or but the problem is that the signal they're picking up is usually rubbish. You're normally getting, you've got a code from a tiki bar or something, or a restaurant's half a mile away, and what you're getting download speed is awful. And honestly, we have found no matter where we are in the world, no matter what continent we are in, normally local SIM cards work far better than anything you're going to get like from a Wi-Fi bat or for a Wi-Fi extender. So so communicating on Ruby Rose 2, I am very reluctant to drill holes in a boat to install stuff that is going to have a pretty short shelf life. So that's that. So I think we're going to use, for offshore stuff, we'll get something. We had a sat phone, we'll get another small satellite receiver for getting weather, until Elon Musk knocks on our door and says, "Hey guys, do you want a protein?"
I'm a big fan.
I'm a big fan. I've been watching your channel and from my Tesla while creating like moon rockets, and we're gonna
self-driving across America.
Yeah, and so so I think we will look very closely at Starlink. So that's the same. So yeah, there you go.
So quickly, Howard just says, can you come back to that conversation about Uma? We did a whole episode where we interviewed them about their setup, and it's probably best that you actually go and watch that episode. You can just go to our homepage. Again, if you're watching this after the fact, I'll link it in the description below. We did a whole hour-long interview with them, so there's just so much there that we talked about regarding their electric setup. There was another question.
If we haven't answered the questions, ask them again, because they all scroll up very quickly.
Yeah. A couple of you tried to post the link to the podcast, but YouTube's blocking it. Yeah, you won't be able to post any external links.
Yeah, sorry. And the other thing is, of the 650 of you watching, only half of you have clicked the like button. So if you click the like button, if you haven't already subscribed, click the little subscription thing, and there's a bell, because the thing about YouTube is every now and then, for whatever reason, and it's not just they've got it in for us, they turn the bell off. Click the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, because it's a lot of this, but like in a slightly sunnier environment that normally floats. And and so that's what we think. So, and I'll keep reminding you of that. So let's have a little shifty about other questions. Sorry, Holly asked a question about planning. No, someone asked about how the software packages we are using to run, and I'm going to say the word business loosely. There are certain channels. I mean, a question we get asked a lot is, who do we watch? Who do we admire? And honestly, the channels that I love, Eric and Andera, because he's freaking nuts, but his stuff is really good.
Yeah.
The other thing is Dan and Kika. Their stuff is amazing. Like they are knocking out some amazing stuff, and Nikki and Jason are as well.
Yeah.
And the reason I highlight those three is that they are still just them. There's no team, there's no external editors. They are just getting on with it, and they are knocking.
Nick says Eric is wild. Yeah, he sure is. I mean, we love watching his sailing, because we know for sure that is never, we are never ever going to be doing the type of stuff that he does. I mean, he is in a whole other league.
So basically what Holly asked is, how do we manage it all? And really, we have a method, which is, I couldn't write it down, but I don't think we use any specific programs. There are some stuff on the internet that, there's some apps that you can download to kind of try and manage all your social media posts and that. We've actually got into routine now of actually just doing it, just on a daily basis, posting something. We've got video scheduling for YouTube and stuff. So it's between the two of us, in the same way that Dan and Kika and Nikki and Jason, we still manage it on our own. Look, obviously, if we end up at some point with 10 million subscribers, we will maybe need to get some help. But that's where we are with it. We're just still we're not using any specific tools outside of YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, where there's no overseeing software AI bot that's doing it all for us. So yeah, that's that. What else? What other questions? Someone's asked. Yeah, someone laughed at on water says, Delos have got they've got a fairly big satellite dome on their boat, and that is not going to work on Ruby Rose 2.
Then they've got two, don't they?
Yeah, this boat is pretty weight sensitive. I'm still looking to try and squeeze past Seawind's like judicious eye on weight. They're like, how much is that going to weigh? And I'm like, I don't know. Because again, in the Patreon group, someone asked about lightning protection system, and when one thing that I do want to put on the boat is a really good coffee machine, and unfortunately it weighs like 25 kilos, so they are going to be a little bit jumpy about that as I try and squeeze that past. Maybe I'll like disguise it as a bale of hay or some,
Yeah, I think that Jay will cotton onto that fairly
quickly. He's like, what's that?
So someone says Makeny Mike says a good question. Are you planning on a editing station on Ruby Rose 2? Yes, so we've given a lot of thought to our setup, because on Ruby Rose, obviously the setup was really awkward because I would normally edit at the nav station, but it wasn't very ergonomic because it's not like designed to be, well, if it was designed for you to be sitting there for hours at a time, then they didn't do a very good job. So it wasn't ever very comfortable, and it always kind of like I got a backache and my legs hurt, and it just didn't really work. So Ruby Rose 2 is definitely going to have a better setup. We have two options. We have the nav station, which is going to probably be option number one, because let's face it, we're not going to be using it as a nav station. I would say like 95% of the time it's going to be like a desk. And is going to have a really comfortable ergonomic chair, which is really important, as anyone who works like, on a computer all day knows. And and then we also need like charging at like a charging area. So we need a storage space where we can put all of our electronics, our cameras and all of that kind of stuff, all our equipment, and have somewhere that we can charge everything, but also store everything at the same time, because it got really messy having to like charge with the batteries and everything in Ruby Rose because there was nowhere to put it all. So we have to give it a lot of thought in advance so that we can set it all up. We're kind of thinking like a cupboard, so when we open it all, like everything's all neatly there, like we've got all our USB charging points and like our battery banks and everything that we can just like put stuff in and it charges, and that's where it's also stored. But we also have in the master hull, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, don't we have like a little desk?
Yeah, there's a desk. I think I'm also talking to Shane at Seawind about there's something he's thinking of building into the nav station where when you lift up the desk, there's a high definition monitor there for us to edit at. He's done it for a 1600 and he was talking about that. So there's a few things, charging points and just being more organised. I think the thing is, I don't see us, never say never, getting to the point where we've got external editors. As I said, never say never. Because we do like doing it, but there comes a point where we just other bits need to be done by other people.
Do you want to talk about your little workshop, because this actually came up in our WhatsApp?
You make me sound like an elf. I'm not making freaking toys for like kids for Christmas against the Santa. My little workshop.
Your little workshop.
My little workshop.
Yes, no, this came up in our Patreon WhatsApp group because they were talking about the workshop.
Okay,
situation.
so at present there is going to be a workshop built into in the two forepeaks on port, the port side forepeak on Ruby Rose 2 is going to be a sail locker, which has got access to the walk-in wardrobe. Like it's got a freaking walk-in wardrobe. That's going to be amazing.
I don't know if it's walk-in.
It's definitely a walk-in.
It's
wardrobe.
like maybe like step in, and then
I can see.
It's a wardrobe.
Anyway, it's going to be and starboard. There's going to be. It's going to double as a berth and a workshop. So.
And sorry, is that going to be standard or is that going to be like an option?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. That was the question. I didn't know the answer to that either. We were asked this, but I don't know the answer.
Anyway, so we are looking. So there's going to be a workshop, and there are certain requirements that I've asked for in a workshop, which to me are pretty standard. So the way that we kind of put our wish list across to Seawind about what we would want in a workshop. So assuming that it's got like a mattress there that is the berth. So I would need that to roll away. And then underneath, I'd want some sort of like heavy duty non-slip rubber matting. I would want an area underneath the berth where I could then get a vise and put, bolt a vise through so that I can, and then In addition to that, I want lighting that is kind of posable. So it's like spotlights like you get on nav light, on the lights at the nav station that are on articulated kind of like stems. So you can actually light areas. And I want 2 of those so we don't cast shadows, because for soldering you need that. In addition to that, I want a plug socket so I can plug in, tools, and a Hoover, or a vacuum cleaner to get rid of dust, and if I'm working. And then what I want is a shelf that is wide enough to take plastic storage bins that then have tools or spares in. So it was done really well. If you look at if you go back to our video reviews of the Mavic 440 catamaran, they had a workshop in their the Maverick 440 review. They had a workshop built into it, and it was sweet. And that is exactly what I want.
So Robert says, what about a HD camera like mounted at the top of the mast? And that is exactly what we're hoping for. We have a meeting with Jay like next week or the week after, when we get back to the UK, before Christmas, I think, maybe. Because you're absolutely right. It's really great to have that camera mounted at the top of the mast, or at least kind of maybe at the first or second set of spreaders, so that when you're going through areas with a lot of coral, then you can kind of navigate your way through much more easily and find somewhere to anchor. And also, just from like the point of view of just keeping watch on a long passage or whatever, that gives you a much better view than, because when you're down low, if there's any swell, it actually can be really hard sometimes to see what's going on, like to see other boats on the horizon. Until they're quite close. So yeah, we're going to talk to Jay about that, because that's something that we're interested in, and he has a couple of options for us, but we just need to work out how it's all going to be set up and whether it's feasible.
Yeah, the electronics, because what is available now is not what's going to be available in 6 months' time. It changes so rapidly. But our plan is at the moment to have 2 permanently installed cameras, waterproof cameras, mounted, one in the cockpit, and one on the mast. Now that will provide feeds for navigation, but also, and again, the network that we're going to put together to kind of like to take video feeds we haven't even started on that. But the hope is that at some point in the future, if we have a permanent wired kind of hard internet connection, that we can live stream from the boat, like permanently, just leave a feed running. Obviously, we'd be able to turn it on and off. So if I'm running around with with my nuts hanging out, you don't want to see that. So we need to be able to turn it on and off. But I do think there is scope for us, because this boat is going to be pretty technologically advanced, and I suppose we're coming at it from being able to design a boat or have input in a boat where we know what we want from technology for the YouTube channel as well as for sailing. So for us to be able to say, as Teresa's already said, we want a cupboard which has got multiple USB sockets inside, so that we can always charge up batteries, so that we've got, so that a cupboard that is vented so that we can let heat out if we're charging batteries, so that we can store a drone and have it charged up, so that we can have cameras mounted permanently. And so there's we are putting consideration to the fact that we run a YouTube channel, and we'll be running a YouTube channel for the next 5 years while we sell this boat. And so that is being considered in the boat design. Someone actually asked about tenders and the OC tender. We do have a tender, and we're not telling you, we're not disclosing it yet, because the design, we're just waiting we're trying to get a special edition made, and it may not come to it, but we're trying to get a special edition made, super light version of a tender that has a lot of the functionality of a heavier boat, of a heavier tender. So again, it's all to be discussed. It is all to do with weight.
Hang on. You touched it and I lost it. Oh, okay. So Sylvia says, how often are we going to see you in the next few months? Are you going to film and keep the vlog updated? Yes, absolutely. We will be putting videos out every single week, like for years and years to come. So that's not going away at all. Oh dear, we've just lost our camera.
No, it's okay. I can fix this. Hang on a second.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah, I thought that would run out of power at some point.
Transition.
There you go.
Here we go.
That should pop back up now. Yeah, sorry, the camera's just run out of battery.
Here we go. All right then. Okay, you have to deal with our less less good
That's good.
image, which probably isn't a problem.
So yeah, Alice has asked about. Sorry, Karen, darling.
Yeah, so we are going to, I think I said at the beginning, but actually there was only maybe a couple of hundred people watching at the beginning, and now we have almost 700. So a lot of you missed this. I apologise. So we are going to continue to film, obviously. We will... Okay, so at the moment, because there is a lag, obviously, with our YouTube channel, that is very common amongst like YouTube, particularly selling channels. You often get like a lag between real time and, you know, the actual videos. So at the moment, we are releasing videos that were filmed back during the summer. So the season that we're doing at the moment is our French Atlantic sailing season, and that will continue through until probably February, March. So you'll continue to see all of our French sailing adventures and how we crossed the English Channel and how we got the boat back to the UK, the process of selling Ruby Rose. That was all filmed over the summer, and you where am I looking? I was looking up there because I'm looking at the wrong camera now. That was all filmed over the summer, and you'll be getting those every single week until the spring. We are then also going to be releasing a series next year of our sailing adventures in Australia. So we're going to be doing a couple of different like sailing holidays in Australia. One is going to be the New South Wales coast out of Sydney. It's going to be really amazing. I can't wait. And then we're going to also do another series in the Whitsundays. So next year, the bulk of next year, 2021, is going to be our Australian sailing adventures. And we're also, the other question that someone asked was, are we going to bring back the Technical Tuesdays? We are, but it's not going to be like super regular. So at the moment, we're focusing on our catamaran build series, which is, I think we're putting out like one episode a month, maybe one episode every 3 weeks.
Yep.
We have the next episode coming out tomorrow, actually. So make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss that one. And that is the final episode in that catamaran build series that we interviewed with Antoine.
And we saved the best till last.
Yeah, it's a really interesting episode, I think.
And there's a freebie. We've actually made a freebie for you to download tomorrow. So if you, it came out on Patreon last week, but there's a free boat buyer's guide coming out tomorrow. Because honestly, so many of you ask us about, I'm looking at this boat and that boat, and I'm looking at, and I'm not, it doesn't matter what boat you're looking at, especially with catamarans. But the questions you need to be asking are, well, not how much it costs, but how is it built? Like, what is it made of? Are you using, like a decent vinyl ester, or using polyester to kind of like make the fiberglass? Are you using a vacuum infusion technique, or are you hand rolling it? And these are questions that you have to know the answers to before you get into the more complicated bits. So, yes. A question, David Hernandez. Sorry, I've seen that question come up a few times. Are we going to be reviewing the Rapido 60 trimaran while you're in Vietnam? I don't know. I have no idea. If we get an opportunity to review boats, we will do. I think look, I love reviewing boats. Poking around on boats gives me a huge amount of satisfaction. So I don't mind, I enjoy doing it. We have talked about, I know Billy and Sarah are on a Corsair 880 at the moment, sailing around. We've talked about going sailing on one of those in Australia because there's a couple that we can go and try. And I love the thought of doing 20 knots on a trimaran. Is it something that we would use as a day sailor? No, of course it's not. It's not. We want to do something different with our sailing. But if someone says, do you want to go sailing on a trimaran? Yeah, damn straight. Of course I will. Hans has asked, a bit late to the party, Hans, but welcome nonetheless, sir. Yes, Ruby Rose has sold. She sold a couple of months ago. So
okay. So there's a question about how we're getting to Australia because the borders are closed, and I'm Australian, so I don't need any like special permission. And Nick has a visa, and we both have exemption for the travel ban, so we have all of that paperwork and that in place.
So someone's asked about Nikki and Jason removing their fuel tanks. Look, we don't know the precise details of like location, say fuel and water tanks. All I would say about the fuel and water tanks in Seawind, they're all in the midline. So I think they are going to be pretty accessible. We had an issue with our holding tank on Ruby Rose, and getting to it was God's own job. I had to take the nav station apart to get to the holding tank because it's all put in, on top of each other. And we've heard stories of especially the engines in boats where they've had to cut the engine out of cut through the sole plate of the cockpit to get the engine out. So, yeah.
Eric says, do you have any desire to go to the northern latitudes?
No.
I would love to. Nick is
I hate the cold.
resistant, to say the least.
I mean, look,
I think, honestly, I would love to, I think that
I'll get some water. You carry on.
I think
hold the fort, babe.
all right then. I think that I could convince Nick to do some sailing like in the Baltic during the summer, because it's high latitude, but it's not like crazy. But I don't think that I could ever convince him to go like to the Arctic or down to Antarctica or anything like that. So, yeah, I think that, I don't think that I'm going to get that chance, but I'm going to keep working on it because I'd love to do some high latitude stuff.
Oh, hang on a second. Let me just tell you.
I'd love to like sail up to where like Uma's been this year and go up to Norway. Yeah. That would be really cool. But
I mean, look, all I would say to you is...
Sorry, we'd need, for sure, the right boat.
Yeah.
Is that what you were going to say?
Well, I was going to say that, yeah, Ruby Rose 2...
Are you going to have a caffeinated drink right now?
Why? Do you think I'm not hyperactive enough?
I think that you're not going to sleep tonight.
What's the time?
It's like 6 o'clock.
Oh, it's okay. Caffeine doesn't affect me.
Okay. Yeah.
Ruby Rose 2 is not meant for high latitudes. There's boats like the Puffin 50, which is one of my dream boats. So maybe Ruby Rose 4 or Ruby Rose 5. I'm not going to give up sailing. I love it. So for us, I think,
the Garcia catamarans, they're like...
Yes.
Yeah, so we'd need like a aluminium or like a steel boat perhaps that was kind of meant for high latitudes. It has like a pilot house and is all kind of insulated and reinforced bow, all that kind of stuff. So we'd need something that was going to like be built for the job, for sure.
Sam asks, is it a good time to do a canals trip and such? I think that honestly at the moment, you talking about the canals in France, I think that once this vaccine's rolled out, I think the French will really want to get their tourism back on track for 2021.
Yeah, and we love the canals. We were actually reminiscing about it the other day because we did a talk for a yacht club in Toronto. What was the yacht club name?
I don't know.
I can't remember, sorry. We were actually talking about it with them as like a presentation, and we kind of got to relive it and we realised how much fun it was.
Well, the canal thing, I mean, this is, behind the scenes. We even filmed it. We had a canal holiday to give away.
Oh, yeah, we did.
We talked to a charter company. We said, look, can you give us a charter for our patrons or our viewers to give away to someone? And they were like, yeah, of course we can. And we had it. We got the film, we got the video, and they're like,
COVID.
And
they were like, I don't think anyone can come to France right now.
Yeah, so
that didn't happen.
And I don't think, I think that ship has sailed. It was at the time we were releasing the canal videos.
Yeah,
so yeah.
It won't really work like a year later. Okay, any other questions? By the way, let us know.
And of the 715 of you watching, only 505 of you have liked it. So I would like to see that number go up somewhat. Yes. So Prakash says, hi from India. Any plans to sail to Goa? Actually, maybe. I think that Teresa and I met in India, so we have very fond memories of India. Yeah. And I think one route that we maybe have for Ruby Rose 2 is to sail across the Indian Ocean initially. So yeah.
Yeah, that may be on the cards.
Maybe who knows?
We don't know.
If not Goa, then maybe in the subcontinent of South Asia. Then maybe. Someone's asked about OC tenders. We have considered OC tenders. We talked to OC tenders. At the moment, we're not going to move forward with OC. We're going to go with another company. And again, we are waiting to see if they can come up with what we want. And so once we.
That's a good question.
From Kim?
Yes.
Is it Kim's good question?
Yes.
Kim's question. I'm not going to kind of preempt this and build it up to something it's not. Kim's question, Therese.
A bit late for that now. I was just going to answer in 30 seconds or less. So Kim says, what are the negatives that you expect for sailing catamaran in Europe? So first of all, I can't say with 100% certainty that we'll end up with our catamaran in Europe. That is the plan. As we all know from this year, so there's one lesson that everyone has learned. Plans are just that. They're not set in stone. So we don't know that will happen for sure. However, I think that if it does happen, then there's going to be a couple of issues. The main issue is going to be the cost of the catamaran when it's in marinas. And the thing about sailing in the Med, and actually all of Europe, when I stop and think about it, is that There are a lot of cruising grounds in Europe where you can anchor a lot. However, there's a lot of places that it's much more difficult to anchor. So it's inevitable that we'll have to spend time in marinas if we're sailing in Europe. And unlike, for example, the Caribbean, where you can literally live at anchor like forever and ever. I mean, forever, ever. So the cost will be one massive issue. But also finding marinas that will take a catamaran is going to be another problem. A lot of them are like in very small little ancient ports that have just been converted and to like a modern marina, and they take monohulls and there's not really any room for catamarans. So that's the main thing. I think apart from that, there's no other real disadvantage. I think that the Med is going to be a great place to sail a catamaran because you've got these relatively flat seas, but you have like quite strong winds sometimes. And, the Med is big, and we're going to have a performance catamaran, which means that we're going to be able to like get to places quite quickly. So, we're really hoping that we can get to Greece, even if it's like just
quickly.
The Ionian, which is like the westernmost part of Greece. So we might not get to like where we are right now, which is all the way kind of east. But we're definitely hoping to get to Greece, and I think that's feasible because, as I said, we'll have this performance cat and, nice strong winds, hopefully, and, we'll be able to get over here quite quickly and then zip back to the Gibraltar Strait to get back out to the Atlantic.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Someone's picked up on our Outcast reference.
Oh, that's nice.
There you go. Honestly, I think the thing about... Teresa and I talked about where we sailed last season in Western France, and it is some of the finest sailing we've ever done. But we couldn't have done it in a cat, and so you do have to pick. The amount of times we were like, I couldn't do this in a cat, couldn't do that in a cat. Western France is really mostly set up for monohulls around 40 foot or less.
Yeah.
So you can find ports that will take big cats, but they're small.
And the thing is,
there's not that many of them.
It's not like the fault of the infrastructure. It's the inherent issue with the cruising ground itself, because you have all these tiny little rivers that like are really, really narrow. You have like all these little kind of small anchorages, all these little ports that are like really small, and I mean they have some of the infrastructure is really not very good for catamarans, like these mooring buoys that will only take boats up to 12 meters. So yeah, it's not really a catamaran kind of place.
Someone's asked, would we sail to Malta? Yeah, in a heartbeat. Valletta is meant to be an absolutely amazingly beautiful place. I think honestly, look, regarding Ruby Rose 2, we've been pretty upfront about this. We don't know which route we're going to take. Route 1 is we tail her from Vietnam across the Indian Ocean. Preferably, we would actually take Route 2, which is actually to ship the boat to Europe, because the boat needs to be at boat shows. And from then, we will go to, other, across the Atlantic. I want to get back into ocean sailing. For the last 2 years, we have done different sailing. The French canals was amazing, and an amazing thing that we did. Love to do it again, not in a sailboat with a mast on deck. That was far too stressful. And then this year we did these beautiful little ports, and this year was I think actually in a way it was my favourite season. And the reason it was my favourite season is that we, in essentially our entire sailing season, did like 500 miles, which meant that we could go and sit in ports and just go to crazy little quirky places, which is why we love sailing. I mean, before we had the YouTube channel, Teresa and I took the boat into this crazy fishing port in Morocco called Essaouira, and it's still probably the craziest mooring we've ever done. And honestly, it's that sort of experience that for us is like, it makes sailing. So, zipping across oceans is one thing, and that's what Ruby Rose is actually meant for. She's an ocean going vessel to cover miles pretty quickly.
So just a quick sailing vessel EOT says ARC or for the Atlantic crossing or on our own. I think we do the ARC again. I don't feel like we would need necessarily like the support. But it's fun. Like we had an absolute blast on the Ark both times, and it's just loads of fun. It's a great atmosphere, so I think we'd do it again for sure.
Yeah.
And then Andrew says, I like to speak my mind, so just to let you know, Nick, I think you're a bit of a snob.
Do you know what, Nick? Andrew, I'd like you to quantify that. I mean, I'm all up for a robust debate, but I don't understand snob. I think maybe some people, because I've got an English accent, equate my attitude to snobbery, but I don't see it.
Yes, Andrew, break that down for us.
Yeah, break it down, mate. Break it down and let me take you apart like an effing chicken.
Okay.
No, Andrew's now discussing with Omar.
There's no need to get irate, everyone.
No.
I'm interested.
He is entitled to his opinion.
Yeah,
I either want to put him right or
I'm actually genuinely interested.
I'm interested to know why you think I'm a snob.
Yeah.
But listen, while Andrew's typing
Gathering
away,
his thoughts.
gathering his thoughts, there is certain snobbery I have. I think that. Let me just give Andrew the ammunition he needs. I think in certain boats that we reviewed, there is a snobbery, but I do think that I think it's justified. Like, for instance, some of the boats we reviewed are so overpriced for what they are, and I am a bit sniffy about it because I look at boats and I think you're asking $500,000 for this boat in its basic form, and it looks nice, but scratch the surface and it is a frigging shed. I wouldn't take this to sea. I'd rather take a coracle and a flask of tea than sail your $500,000 boat across an ocean. And maybe that comes across as snobbery. Maybe that comes across as me. I do speak my mind, but honestly, there is a lot of rubbish being sold on the market as new boats. And I'm not coming up with any brands. I'm not mentioning any names because it's an opinion piece. I'm not a professional. But what I would say to you is that, maybe that comes across as a bit sniffy, a bit snobby. But honestly, we're still waiting for your man's comment.
And in the meantime, Jason, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Jason's requested a banana hammock modelling for Ruby Rose 2 at the boat show.
That's going to happen. So you look, the thing about, while this is obviously triggered off some questions.
Look at Teresa's face.
About the Neil interview, the Neil review. Look, that boat.
Sorry, I think I just need to get a
she's off. I think one thing that came from that Neil review wasn't so much that the review that we did, but the comment that we put underneath it, and it's pinned. If you go back to the Neil review and look, it's the comment that's pinned as the first comment under the review, because we went back to see it again, and I like to think that we gave them as good a second bite of the cherry or the apple, depending on what fruit reference you want to use, as we could have done there. So. Yeah, look, there's no point in me lying to you about boats if I don't like them. If I can explain why I don't like something, I will do. And I don't think it probably does our channel any good to kind of like paper over issues we have. If I said to you that every boat was amazing, oh, this is amazing, and do what a lot of paper-based media do, are we giving you value? Anyway, there you go. But, I'm not sure Neil are going to let us review anything else. No. Anyway, any other questions now that we've dealt with this perceived snobbery, non-snobbery? Who knows? Do you know what? Honestly, I'm not taking umbrage at it. I think it's a strange thing to say.
Well, I think that when someone sees you in a way that's very different to the way that you see yourself, there's a disconnect there, and it's always very interesting.
Look, I've always said you can't be a judge of your own character strengths or flaws. Like, you can't turn around and say, well, I'm clever, good looking, or, funny.
You say that all the time.
I know I do, because then no one else bloody says it, do they? Anyway, Eric has asked us, security tech on the boat. No, mate, I don't think we got anything.
Anything security based?
No, nothing. Honestly, I think that one question that gets asked on all the forums is about piracy. And
sorry, Aaron's from Southeast London. Where are you, Aaron? Because that's where Nick.
Southeast. Yeah, Southeast. I'm South. Yeah, I'm from Catford, for crying out loud. Snobby old Catford.
Snobby Catford.
Snobby old Catford.
Known for their snobs in Catford. Can't move for snobs.
Yes, the Catford. Yes. As I trot down to the Catford Mews on my pony. No, piracy, like the tech to avoid piracy, there's nothing you can do. You have to go into it with with an informed, with information on piracy hotspots, avoid those. But you are always going to find, there's bad luck to be had. If you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, you were essentially sailing in areas where there is no money, and you're sailing in a very bloody expensive boat.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Have you found monos to be better built than cats? That's a good question.
I'm going to
Take high end of both.
Okay, Jason. Well, this is going to be...
for example, Halberg versus Antares.
It's different, and I'm going to explain. And this video that's coming out tomorrow, so if you haven't all set your notification bells, it'll be out tomorrow, and it's to do with the material science of hull construction or fiberglass boat construction. Now, you're going to be like, really, Nick? Is that what you're doing? I think it's pretty interesting. Wait to see what you think about it. But the thing about monohulls versus, say, multi-hulls is it's all about weight. Catamarans sit on the water, monohulls sit in the water. So you have to be super, wary of how much weight you're putting in. Ruby Rose, solid fiberglass. The fiberglass was that thick because the weight doesn't really matter. So it's not that weight sensitive. So the build quality is pretty strong. You've got a lot of strength in just the sheer thickness of hull material. When you move to catamarans, you can't have that sort of weight. So you have to find a way of keeping the thickness but reducing the weight, and that involves having foam core as a sandwich, or if you want to buy something an antiquated, use balsa as a sandwich. So that where you are using a laminate structure where you have got honestly something between layers of fiberglass, that really does dictate how well a boat is built. So if you're using inferior sandwich materials, then your quality is not going to be as good. So in the whole spectrum of what you can use a sandwich between foam core and at the other end of the spectrum balsa, then there is a difference in build quality. You don't get that in monohulls because normally they are solid fiberglass. And just to continue it, and this is going to be discussed in tomorrow's video at length. Why is sandwich core so important? Because if you get water into if you make a little crack, or you get a dent or a knock or a ding, and you get water between those layers, it will track through. And so you do need to have a material that isn't going to swell, isn't going to be isn't going to absorb water and thus cause delamination, isn't going to track through the boat. So the material science of the sandwich core, whether it's foam core or balsa, needs to be understood. So that's the first thing. Regarding monohull and multi-hull versus the strength of the hull, and we discussed this in tomorrow's video as well, the different ways of actually making fiberglass. It's not like you just put these two ingredients together and mix them up. Well, you can do that, but it's to do with how much strength you can put into the boat. And there's different ways of building and making fiberglass. So at one level, you've got men with rollers that are just, they've got fiber, they put the fiberglass matting down, they roller it on with resin, and that creates fiber, that makes fiberglass. The problem about that is that it's inefficient as a process, and it introduces air voids into the boat, into the construction. And we found, Ruby Rose subtly is a good mark, but that was hand laid fiberglass, and that hand laid fiberglass, even the surveyor, after 9 years, when he was going on these little hammer, found a couple of little voids that needed to be filled in. So that's not the best way of making fiberglass. Then there's vacuum infusion, which kind of like or wet layer vacuum. And again, it's all in tomorrow's video, but there are so many parameters in construction of fiberglass that the quality varies wildly, and that's the message that comes out in tomorrow's video. So whether you're looking at catamaran or monohull, you are going to have a variance in quality of build just on the materials. Back to your original question, are monohulls inherently stronger? Probably yes, because they are built, they're not so weight sensitive, so you can stick a lot of fiberglass in there. Anyway, other questions. Someone's asked which hull will Ruby Rose 2 be? Ruby Rose 2 is going to be hull number 2. We were offered hull number... We were offered hull number 1, and we said we want hull number 2. And there's not anything wrong with hull number 1. It's just that I want to be able to visualize the boat, and you can visualize everything in renders, but until you see things, there are so many different parts of our boat that we're going to need to customize purely because we've got a YouTube channel. So, for instance, things like did we mention this in this feed or the Patreon feed about the cupboards that we've got?
Oh God,
Can't remember because it was a while back. So, like for instance, we want certain cupboards to have like ventilation for charging, like batteries for cameras and drones and stuff, and like a cupboard with multiple USB sockets so that we can do charging. And I can't visualize that. So a lot of the things that we can't see until we actually physically get on hull 1. So other things like, for instance, we are mounting cameras. At the moment, we've got a plan to have 2 permanent fixed cameras, one in the cockpit and one on the mast. Now, the mast one's pretty straightforward, but until we can actually see the boat and see hull 1, I can't plan for where do we put that camera. So again, yeah, it's that's why hull 2. Captain McFingal. That's a nice name. Thank you so much, sir. That's very kind of you.
I would say that we're definitely not sailboat snobs at all. Actually, I think.
Did your man answer back, or did he run off?
I think he ran off. But no, I think that what Captain McFingal is saying is that we're very focused on sailing boats rather than like boats of all kinds. And I mean, we've had our head turned many, many times by like barges, canal boats, even like trawlers, like what you get. We don't really have trawlers in Europe.
No, they do exist. And to tell you the truth, we will at some point in our lives own a powerboat. I'm not suggesting it's going to be like a 62-foot like.
Well, I really want to have a barge.
Oh, a barge.
Yeah.
2 more questions about that Fred and Doug have asked back on, and this is all being covered tomorrow in tomorrow's video, but I'm going to run through this. Fred asks honeycomb core. I don't have any issue with honeycomb or honeycomb core as long as it is closed cell. Open cell is just a nightmare. Closed cell, it's pretty self-explanatory, but essentially the individual cells of the honeycomb material don't allow water to pass through. I have a honeycomb celled snowboard, and that is not closed cell. So from that point of view, it would be an absolute nightmare on a boat. And Doug Marder asks about pre-preg. Again, we discussed pre-preg in tomorrow's video. Pre-impregnated fiberglass is super expensive and super technique sensitive because it's got to be stored in a freezer and is only used in certain things. So pre-preg is used for instance, mast construction and fiberglass carbon fiber mast construction. So it's very rare that you'll find a production boat that's made from pre-preg. It tends to be the high-end racing yachts. But again, all in tomorrow's video. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please feel free to just click all the buttons down below.
All the buttons.
All the buttons, every single button.
So Heidi and Franny's Garage, which is an excellent name, says, Teresa, what is your favourite feature of Ruby Rose 2? But I feel like we should both answer this because I think that's an interesting question.
Well, my favourite feature of Ruby Rose 2 will be you, my love.
Okay. What's your second favourite? Because I'm a feature of your life just in general.
I don't know.
One thing.
I can't do one thing.
I know, well, that's what I was thinking, but then I came up with one. I've got one in my head that Ruby Rose 2 specifically, not catamarans in general, but specifically the 1370 Ruby Rose 2, something that I'm excited about.
The thing I am most excited about is the galley.
Okay, why is that then?
Because when we had Ruby Rose 1, we knew that we were making a compromise to downsizing to make our lives smaller, right? So we knew that
Make our lives smaller?
Well, we had to kind of compress everything into a tiny living thing, right?
Yeah.
Moving to a catamaran, you get more galley space naturally.
Oh, I know where this is going. Yeah.
So we knew that we were going to get a bigger galley.
Yeah.
And the discussions we had with Seawind were more to do with the fact that before, when we were living on land, we used to cook a lot. Like I'm really into cooking. Like I honestly considered, at one point over the last 5 years, taking some time out and going to train, actually getting professional chef training. I am that into cooking. So I always knew that, when we were on Ruby Rose, we had a little fridge freezer, we had a 2-burner gas stove, and we cooked pretty amazing meals there. Now we've got all this space, and we've been out and make a galley that I'm like, firstly, really high-end Bosch oven. Like having a really good electric oven that I can temperature regulate, fan assisted, the lot. Like on a boat, that means that, souffle's back on the menu.
Lucky me.
Having a really good hob or stovetop to you Americans, that, we can actually cook. And you just have different levels of, being able to cook with a 3-ring hob.
But that's kind of like an inherent advantage of a catamaran.
No, but so in addition to that, we've specified Korean. We've got like double sink, and literally I've been out when we built Ruby Rose, that we were given no choice as to how the galley was fitted. We could choose the Korean, and we could choose a few things. Now I can say, well, I want this routed out, I want this sink, I want a tap there, because we've had a part in designing it. So the thing that I'm most interested in is the galley. And yes, fridges and freezers come as standard, and everyone has hobs and a cooker on a boat, but that plus we've put things in like that recycling chute to the sea when we're offshore, and another chute to a recycling bin, and then being able to pull it all back and literally be able to make food next to where it all opens up. And if you look at the video, there's a breakfast bar, so you can sit at the breakfast bar,
I keep forgetting about the breakfast bar.
A tasting menu to you.
I keep forgetting that we have a breakfast bar, which is quite something. My favourite thing, did you want to know what my favourite thing is going to be? The thing I'm most looking forward to?
We've been building up to this, my love.
Well, we weren't really, because you had just been off on a tangent about how excited you are about the galley. I'm most excited about the trifold door. I think that having...
Yes. I'm listening. I had my ear turned to you. I had my ear so that I could get all the noise.
I was waiting for your reaction. I just got blanked.
No, all the noise was coming in.
All the noise. Me talking. Yeah, all right. Freudian slip there. No, I'm most excited about the trifold door. I think that that is awesome to be able to have 2 separate living areas, or fold the door up and have just one big open space is going to be really, really fun. So Jason says that he wants to know if we're going to have lithium batteries with Rose 2. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, a full master volt lithium battery bank. I think we're going about 860 amp hours of battery power. And the reason that everyone's like, well, why don't you put more batteries in? Because the battery bank on a boat has to be matched to the solar ability, the ability to recharge them. So there you go. That's where we are. So Karen says, why do you have a snowboard if you don't like cold weather? But there's a difference between being in an alpine resort, drinking hot chocolate and tearing the arse out of life, like snowboarding, and being on a boat in the cold and the wet. Because I do love snowboarding as well. That's another thing.
Yeah.
I've been snowboarding since I was a kid, just about. So I'm pretty into it.
Yeah, we love. Well, I ski, but we love it. We absolutely love it. That's the other side of our life, but we can't really pursue that very, very often because obviously we have.
Well, you can only
do so much with your life.
Exactly. So anyway, does anyone have any questions that aren't about cooking or other stuff? Someone asked about the wedding. Probably next year, September.
Yeah, we're still waiting to see how things pan out, but I think it's fair to say that we're going to get married next year. I think that
it could be fair to say.
It's fair to say that I'll finally pin Nick down.
He's still on the run.
Yeah.
Cue the Benny Hill music.
Yeah. At this rate, I'm going to have to come up with some kind of conspiracy amongst our families, to get him.
As long as it's not sticking a cushion up your jumper. Darling, I've got something to tell you. What? As
if that would make any difference to whether or not you married me.
Oh yeah. Dingo says induction cooktop. We wanted an induction cooktop, and we essentially they ran the calculations, and no, they just can't make the power for it. So we're going with gas, but we're going with a pretty high end gas top. So there you go. So that's so there you go.
Omar, thank you.
Omar, yeah, there you go.
I've heard you listening to. Oh, I see. Okay, here we go. Have you heard of Anthony Hamilton?
As in the musical Hamilton. Is that? Am I correct? Let me know. Let me know if Anthony Hamilton is actually Lord Hamilton.
I don't know.
Yes. Anyway, so there you go.
All the noise. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to rewatch this whole thing, by the way, because when we publish this and it's a video on our page that is no longer live, but people can still watch it, I have to go back and do all the timestamps. So I'm really looking forward to reliving that moment
Okay.
Where you called my valid opinions noise.
Yeah. Anthony Hamilton's also Lewis Hamilton's dad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there you go. So there's two Anthony Hamiltons. There's two Hamiltons I know of. So it could be Lewis Hamilton's dad or another Anthony Hamilton. So what else? Forward-facing sonar, yes, on the new boat. And then what else was I?
Check him out on Spotify. Okay.
Maybe it's Lewis Hamilton's dad. Dingo asked, they're going to be the drives on the boat. They are going to be they are sail drives. It's just to keep the weight where it needs to be. So that's what
it's really hard to find shaft drive catamarans these days.
Yeah, nowadays it is. What else? There's a few questions I wanted to ask. Ski hooligans will be inviting you to join us. Okay, well, definitely going to be skiing again. Hopefully. Snowboards are for knobs.
All right,
Speak your mind, my friend. Speak your mind. Right. What else we got? Guitar strings, do they last on board? That's a question. We get asked about this. I've been playing guitar now for a long, long while. You need to get coated strings. I use Elixir strings. They are covered in they're very, very fine coating of something, and it means that they don't last. If you don't get coated strings, they will not last. So there you go.
Grand Prix starts in 48 minutes.
All right, well, we're going to clear up before
I wonder
that.
whether we can stream that. I've gotten properly... Has anyone seen Formula One Drive to Survive on Netflix? Because if you haven't, you need to watch it immediately. Like, I'm obsessed now. But like before, like racing, driving, whatever, I was so disinterested in. And now I just feel very like emotionally involved in the whole thing.
So, someone's asked, this is a really interesting question. Have you considered a trimaran? No. And I'm going to explain why. Essentially, if you've got three, I'm not talking about Neil, I'm not going to mention Neil. If you've got three holes,
You just did.
the two outer holes, they're so small. That's not livable space unless you get a trimaran which is so big that the width of those outer holes becomes livable. In the Neil, okay, fair enough, I've lost.
There is only one cruising trimaran that I'm aware of.
So in the Neil 47, those holes aren't wide enough for anything. I mean, you couldn't live there. And, so it's not usable space. So you end up with two holes with not really that much usable space as cabins. And then you've got a boat that is so bloody wide. If you watch the video of the beginning of the season, like I think it was probably from the first video in France, we were penned in by a Neil 45, and the owner would not move his boat, and we couldn't get out because he literally took up a double berth, because the damn thing's so wide. So it's kind of, it's a little bit like taking a Humvee to a car park. It's like inappropriate. It's not very nice, and it's too bloody big for what it's meant to be doing. Apologies to anyone that owns a Humvee. There is a space for these things, but you don't try and get into the public car park in a Hummer. So there you go. Now, I think that we probably, unless anyone's got any burning questions or desires that do you want answered?
Yeah, we've been going for an hour and 27 minutes now, and I think that is.
Teresa wants a dinner.
Yeah, I've got some.
So there you go. So. The waiting period for Seaman, I think 2025 for a 1370. Although I think they're starting up, they're going to try and bring all the orders forward by just ramping up their production cycle. So there you go. Gary asks a very nice question. He's just saying, and I'm gonna, I feel that I'm gonna get a bit ranty about this.
Oh God.
Sorry, darling. Jason, again, thank you so much, sir. Gary says, what is your video on camera experience? How did you get so awesome? So firstly, thank you for the compliment. We don't deal well with compliments. But the reason I get a bit ranty is that we get the occasional comment on our videos, which is like, how can I watch this? It was like shot 5 months ago. And I'm like, all right, mate, like this is the way it works. There is something, and we talked to a lot of people who have got other YouTube channels in sailing about techniques and stuff. We have to step away from the boat to firstly change our equipment out. The equipment is getting better at such a rate. So what is the equipment that even from 18 months ago is nowhere near as good as the stuff now. But you have to go away and learn it. So for us, time away from the boat, and the reason we stockpile episodes is so that we can go away and learn our craft, learn the equipment, and come back every season with something which looks a bit better. And honestly, you know, we could churn out videos twice a week just doing little vlogs about what we were doing. It's not what we wanted from the channel. You know, everyone wants to do their thing their own way. For us, we decided pretty early on, no nudity. It's not good for the channel, despite the fact I love being naked. It's not what you want to see and not what we're going to do.
I think that he does. You mean like kind of overt, like lots of bikini,
TNA, yeah.
bikini shots.
Yeah, we're
not like
no.
You're not allowed to have nudity on.
No.
YouTube, you realise.
It's just not us, and it, you know, it's no secret. You know, our friend Bobby White, you know, over at Doodles, is doing super well, and I love Bobby White. He is he's a darling of a man, and I've got a lot of time for him. It's just we want to do things our way, and they do things their way. So that's just everyone's different. So yeah, so. We do spend a lot of time just working on what we do and our techniques, and we also look to other channels that I think, you know what, you've really got this down pat. And you know, you all know Uma and Dan and Kika. Their stuff is superb. That the quality of their cinematography is probably as good as it's going to be. So yeah. So thank you for that compliment, and there's the answer to the question. Now, do any of you have other burning questions before we wrap this live feed up and go and get our soup for dinner?
I think if you got requests to see you in a bikini.
Well, there you go. Why did you are you kicking me accidentally? Or
No, I'm
nudging me.
No.
Sorry. Someone says I don't want to see me in a bikini. I don't want to see me in a bikini either. And there's another question I want to... No, I think that's about it. There's someone asked about lightning protection on a boat. We will talk about that another time. The problem with lightning protection is it doesn't... There's nothing which effectively works to reduce your chance of getting hit by lightning. But what you do is mitigate the effects if you do get hit by lightning. Now, even if you have lightning protection, you are going to be in a situation where you still going to need to get the boat pulled and surveyed. So you don't get to go, oh, I've got this protection. And also the plate, the dispersion plate, is pretty bloody heavy. So it adds a lot of weight to the boat. So we discounted it for Ruby Rose 2. So that is that's done and dusted for us. Clayton asks, are we having composting toilets? No, we are not. So there we go. So we have 693 likes. If we have 7 more of you that could hit like, then we've got that. And for those of you who haven't subscribed to the channel, we've got a lot of amazing stuff coming out. Just to wrap this up, I have the vlogs coming out. We're going to go and do a series in Australia. We're going to learn to sail a catamaran. We're going to start doing more reviews. We're going to be at Annapolis next year doing more reviews. And we've got a lot of other like special secrety things that we've got planning that we're not going to come out with yet. Not because we're trying to hold off on telling you stuff that you should know. But it's just until we've got it all down pat and all sorted out. Like in the same way that we're doing, we've got plans, very big plans for a Ruby Rose rally. And that's something that we want to talk about later on, but not now. I'm not sure if she's giving me the dirty look or not. Anyway, so listen, thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. Stay safe, all of you. We are almost at the end of this ridiculous pandemic. So look, stay safe. Don't fall at the last hurdle. Keep your families safe. Have an amazing Christmas. Socially distanced as it probably is going to be. We will see you in the new year. Hopefully from Australia. Hopefully from some rat-infested hotel in quarantine where we cannot get on we can't get out. But either way, we will be back soon. So listen, stay safe, all of you. You've all been amazing. Click the like button. Smash that like button, as Peter McKinnon would say. And subscribe to the channel. And listen, be safe, all of you. You've all been amazing, and see you again soon. Goodbye.
See ya.